while we're not directly studying it, and I agree that we need a lot more of that because we just don't have enough. I mean, when we look at what just happened on Maui, it's pretty clear that there's a difference, but it hasn't been scientifically measured. And I wish that that was part of this, but we will be considering it as far as how the landscape changes recharge.
Kim just reminded me to say one more thing about our project that I didn't say during my talk. I think many people look at this project as a 5-year, $20 million effort, and that everything we just talked about, that's the only stuff that we're going to work on. I would say no. I would say this is, the way I would like to think about this project is this is the startup funds for what I believe should be a very important and focused research area at Manoa as well as at Hilo. So the idea here is we're building infrastructure, we're recruiting folks. We expect this grant to actually end up in a number of other funding opportunities. What this does is really lay the infrastructure and pull all the people together. But I think that there will be many opportunities for folks to branch out into some of the areas like you were talking about, leveraging the infrastructure that we can put in place and then go after some of those other questions as well. Great question. Yes?
Have you visited some of the sites you're interested in yet?
I have. And this is thanks to Greg Chun. We attended the Leeward Planning Conference, one of the meetings recently where Don Thomas gave a very nice talk on his work. And before that, we drove all around the Hualalai Aquifer. So we got to see just what a really large expanse it is, and we got to visit a number of the areas. So I've gotten to see that one. Have not toured the Pearl Harbor Aquifer. I'm looking forward to doing field work. I've never done field work before. I hope some of the geologists will let me tag along and drag things and carry boxes and stuff like that.
With the Pearl Harbor and Red Hill Aquifer, are you talking about access to military installations solely?
Are we talking?
Yeah.
Nicole.
Not solely.
I see. But mostly?
I don't think so mostly, no. But we'll work with the military and with Honolulu Board of Water Supply and Department of Health to get access to a variety of wells within Pearl Harbor and Honolulu's aquifers.
To what extent are you going to try to leverage historical data?
Oh, as much as, yeah.
I mean, I've seen some of it at least. Board of Water Supply, and there's wellhead measurements. I think USGS has it. But for a lot of these wells going way, way, way back, and that history must be very useful as well, even though it might not be as detailed as the new measurements. Are people thinking about how to put all those pieces together?
Yeah, that's a great question, and yes, and interesting. Nicole and I had a good conversation with Steve Anthony from USGS last week, basically posing that question, because when you want to build one of these numerical models where you really want to be able to look at a very long time span in terms of or like some of Kim's work, be able to project into the future, having all that historical data is important. Now what we're trying to figure out is technically whether we would aggregate all of it and make a big data repository here at UH, or whether we would develop those tools to allow people to easily pull different data sets together to do a particular study. So it's all possible. It's we just have to figure out the technical way to do it. One of the things that is a challenge, and Nicole certainly knows this, is digitizing paper records. So we can certainly scan them and save PDFs, but ultimately the data would be far more useful if it were actually typed in, and I'm not sure that's a great undergraduate research project. But, maybe we do crowdsourcing or something like that. But yeah, and also we're really excited about our work with the Hawaiian Language Institute as well, to figure out what we can glean from those historical records as well.
I don't know if this is a question for you, but I tried to learn a little bit about the hydrological modeling a while ago for a grant proposal. it was really interesting. I can't say I really understand it, but I got the gist of it from talking with Ali a bit. And one question I had then, and I guess I still have now, is how you're going to get new geological information about these formations, which should improve the models, but how do you validate? How do you validate the models to see if it's actually predicting anything better?
I love that question. I'll ask Ollie to answer it.
Or do you have a strategy for seeing how much better the models are?
Well, I guess we start by the conceptual model, which is basically our understanding of the system, which is sometimes subjective and non-unique. Basically, my understanding could be different from somebody else. The criteria is how the conceptual model replicates reality. So with the data I talked about, historical data is a very good source of doing that. So basically, after you build the conceptual model, you use it to build the numerical model, then use the data for calibration, and use some of it for validation. The difference between calibration and validation, after you finish adjusting the parameters, for validation you don't do any adjustment anymore. So this is your criteria comparing between different conceptual models to see which one is closer to reality. The difficult part is calibration sometimes is not unique, because you could have different combination of input data that give you the same answer.
Yeah.
But by collecting as much data as we do, and this is, I think, the best about this project, is that we have independent collection of data using different techniques that will make the parameters maybe as unique or as close to reality as possible, basically. So, like you have certain parameter, if you collect data to give you different estimates or independent estimates, then they all match, this would be great. That would be the criteria, the main criteria. But certainly this is one of the most challenging parts.
It sounds tough.
Well, it's kind of a chicken and egg, because we need the structural data and the well data to build the model, but then ultimately that same data can be used to test the model predictions.
Yeah.
And so well, I have great hopes for our sensor network,
Yeah.
and also our geophysical imaging to see what will come of that.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it. It'll be good to watch. I had one other question. Actually,
Sure.
you posed the question, and I don't know if I should ask it again.
Sure.
But you said you got these difficult questions about why you didn't go to Molokai or look at other aquifers on Maui or whatnot. So how did you answer that question?
How did I answer that question?
Why were these particular aquifers chosen?
So
I can see Pearl Harbor on some sense, but because it's the biggest one and the biggest area. And
I would say a lot during the writing of the proposal, a lot of the choice of the different areas really came from stakeholder input. From Department of Health, Bob Whittier was a huge help, also others. I mean, what we wanted to do is, really the scientific focus of this is to understand, scientifically how aquifers work. But in order for it to be important to the state, it needs to focus on something that the state really cares about, that we can be in, not the state doesn't care about, not on Molokai or Lanai or other areas. And so really what we did was to align our research projects with some of the most pressing issues that our agency stakeholders has brought up to us. And also the other part was, this is just one of the challenges of one of these things. I think it's awfully hard to engage a lot of, especially community members, and say, oh, let's all get together and talk about this great proposal, which we don't know we're going to get, which there's a risk that we won't get it. So trying to be respectful of folks' time, but also I would say that most of the things the techniques that we master, the infrastructure we put in place, the expertise we recruit, all those individuals and all those things could easily be aimed at a different project as well. So what I hope, and again, I'm just being very optimistic about this, I hope that if we do some, if we really make a difference in these two study areas, that will open the door to being able to work in other areas as well. And I know that other members of the team are already doing work in some other areas, but with different funding profiles right now. Great question.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Jacobs? No. In that case, please join me in thanking her again.